In our next example, we are still finding the exact values for sine theta over 2 and cosine theta over 2. So they have given us cosine, which means we don't have to do our triangle. We can just go right into the formula. So if I start with the sine of theta over 2, I am using the formula. So 1 minus cosine theta over 2. And then I'm just plugging in what I know. So this will be 1, and then if I'm subtracting a negative, it turns it into a positive. And then to get rid of the fraction in the fraction, we're going to multiply the numerator by the denominator of this fraction, so by 5. And then we also have to do the same thing to the bottom. So that will leave us with the square root of 5. And then 4/5 times 5 is 4 over 10. All right, so continuing to simplify, 4 plus 5 is 9, so plus minus square root of 9 over 10. And we are thinking of it as the square root of 9 over the square root of 10. So the 9 we can simplify to be a 3. The square root of 10 does not simplify. So that means that I will need to rationalize by taking the square root of 10 times the numerator and the denominator. So then this will be 3 square root of 10 over 10. And now I need to decide if we keep the positive or the negative. So again, to do that, we're going back here, dividing each of these by 2. So this is 45 less than theta less than 90. So if I'm between 45 and 90, that means that I am in that first quadrant. So all of my answers need to be positive. So the final answer for this will be the positive 3 square root of 10 over 10. And then we're going to go through that similar process for cosine theta over 2. So let's see, cosine theta over 2, I'm using the formula plus minus 1 plus cosine theta over 2. And then I'm substituting in the cosine that was given to me. And since I'm going to be adding a negative, I'm just going to write it as a subtraction. And then just like on the previous one, we're going to multiply the numerator by 5 and the denominator. So if I distribute, that will be 5, and then 4/5 times 5 is 4, and 2 times 5 is 10. So combining, 5 minus 4 is 1, and then over 10 still. Thinking of it as 2 separate square roots. So I can take the square root of 1, which is 1, and then I can't simplify the square root of 10, but I do need to rationalize. So this will be plus minus square root of 10 over 10. And then again, I'm deciding if I'm going to keep the positive or the negative. So again, I'm in quadrant 1, so all of my answers are positive. So this final answer will be the square root of 10 over 10. All right, next example, we are given tangent, which means for this problem, we do need to make that triangle to find the missing side. And this is going to be in quadrant 3. So for tangent, we have the opposite side over the adjacent side. Now, we do need to be careful that we're putting the correct signs. So this was a positive, but I went left, so I need to remember to put a negative, and I went down. So when we did find this, that negative divided by a negative made this a positive. Okay? And then now we will need to find that missing side. So if we do Pythagorean Theorem, that will be 25 plus 144 equals our c squared. So that's going to be 169. And if we take the square root of that, it will be 13 for the hypotenuse. Okay, so we only need cosine. So cosine theta is the adjacent side, so negative 12 over the hypotenuse of 13. Okay. So now we have all the information we need to finish finding that sine of theta over 2 and cosine theta over 2. And before I do that, I'm also going to divide each of those by 2 right away. So this will be 90. And 270 divided by 2 is 135. So all students take class. So if I'm between 90 and 135, I am in the second quadrant. So that means that my sine answer is going to be positive and the cosine will be negative. So if I start with the sine of theta over 2, my formula, so I'm not going to write the plus minus since I know my answer is going to be positive, so I'm just going to go right into my formula. So this will be 1 minus cosine theta over 2. I now know cosine theta is this negative 12 over 13, so we're subtracting a negative, so it's going to become a positive. So 1 plus 12 over 13, and then all over 2. And to get rid of that fraction, we are multiplying everything by 13. So distributing to the top, this will be 13 plus 12 over 26. So that will leave me with 25 over 26. And then thinking of it as 25 and square root of 26, so I can simplify the 25 down to 5. Can't simplify the square root of 26, but we do need to rationalize. Now I already determined the sign, so my final answer for this one will be 5 square root 26 over 26. And then now for cosine. So formula, so since I'm in the second quadrant, I know it's going to be negative, so I'm just going to write the negative part of that formula. And then this will be 1 plus cosine theta over 2. So plugging in, since I have a negative number for cosine, I'm going to write it as 1 minus 12 over 13. And then we are multiplying by 13 to get rid of that fraction. So distributing, that is going to be 13 minus 12 over 26. So 13 minus 12 is 1 over 26. And then I'm thinking of it as the square root of 1 and the square root of 26. So the square root of 1 is 1, and then I keep the negative in front of it. And then I would still have the square root of 26 since we can't simplify. And then the last thing that we need to do is rationalize. So my final answer for this one will be negative square root of 26 over 26.